today from Frederick, who is talking about DHL Hackstations. So without further ado, the stage is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, as I said, I'm talking about the DHL Hackstation. If you don't know what those are, it's these parcel locker systems at thousands of locations across Germany. They're similar to the Amazon lockers, which I think exists elsewhere. And this is just DHL's offering in Germany for those parcel locker systems, where you get your parcel delivered to this system and then you walk up to the system and pick up your parcel instead of getting it delivered directly to your door. DHL has two different types, which they call internally either the flag lockers or lean lockers. The flag lockers are the older variant, and they contain a whole bunch of hardware. They have like a whole column of just hardware with a display, a scanner, even a label printer, so that you can walk up with your parcel and get the label printed right at the box. And these even have internet connectivity, so they can talk directly to DHL. Because of the internet connectivity, they're usable without a smartphone. You just walk up with a piece of paper that has a barcode on it, which you scan, and then it gives you your parcel. The more kind of interesting type, which was introduced in 2023 by DHL, is the lean lockers, which have much less hardware on board. There's no more exposed hardware. They don't even have internet. You interact with them only through the Post and Paket app, which then uses Bluetooth Low Energy to talk to the box and convince it to give you your parcel when you click the button in the app. We're going to consider only the case where you want a parcel delivered directly to such a Packstation. And for this, you always need your smartphone and you always need a DHL account. And apart from the DHL account, you also need a registered device. So it's not enough to have your account. These devices, they hold a private and public key pair, and the public key pair is registered to your DHL account. So this serves as a kind of second authentication factor. It's not enough if you only fish, or for example, your DHL account, you also need this registered device. The first device that you want to use with your account is kind of registered for free. It's just authenticated out of band with either a code you get by mail or with your customer card when those still existed. But what's a bit interesting, there's a mechanic where if you have one registered device, you can use this to authenticate the next device that you want to add to your account. So I don't know, you have your phone and you want to authenticate your tablet or something like that, right? And this is the first mechanic I want to look at so that we can replicate this and actually interact with the Packstation ourselves and pick up parcels without using the official app and start to understand how it all works. So here's the scenario. We have two devices. Device number one is already registered and it holds its own private and public key pair. And then device number two is the device that we're trying to add to our account. And this has its own private and public key pair, the public key of which we're trying to add to our account. So public key number one here is already known to DHL, number two is not. And the first step, if we want to add such a device, is we need to get a challenge from DHL, which we're going to use to prove that we actually have the private key for the public key that we're adding. It's a proof of knowledge, if you know what that is, where we're just showing that we can create a signature that's valid for the public key we're trying to add. And now we want to show that we actually have access to an already registered private and public key pair. So what we're doing with the device that already has such a key pair is we're requesting an authentication token. And you can request these authentication tokens at any time as long as you have your DHL account. But the trick is kind of that these tokens are encrypted under the public key of an already registered device. So only if you have the private key for such a public key, you can actually decrypt this token and get the plaintext token out of it. So this mechanic authenticates you as having an already registered key pair. And once this token is decrypted, it's just a 10-digit string, extremely easy to just transmit in a QR code. So device number one shows a QR code, you scan it with device number two, and now device number two knows this token, which it can only know if there was an already registered device at play. It also knows this challenge, and as I said, we're going to sign the challenge with the new key pair here, so everything is done with key pair number two, where we're just proving that we have a private key and we're also binding this, so there's no replay shenanigans where we're using a signature that was issued beforehand or something, because we have to sign the challenge that was issued by DHL. Then we're also proving that we know the token by signing that as well. And you might see here, this notation is we're saying we're concatenating the token and the challenge, which just binds the token to the challenge. So again, there's no reuse shenanigans or anything. We can only use this signature once, especially exactly when this challenge was issued by DHL. The last thing that DHL needs to know about is the public key we're trying to add. We send this all over, and then DHL can check, is this a challenge that I issued? Is this a token that I issued recently? And is this public key like the valid public key for the signatures that were issued. And if all this is true, then we have kind of shown that we have access to an already existing key pair, and key pair number 2 is now added to our account. And this is the first step because we need such a key pair to then pick up parcels in a second. So this is something I already want to show, and this is one of the few things I can show live. The other stuff, I obviously don't have a Packstation here. But let's see here. So we have an emulator. Do we also have VS Code? Oh, I guess we do not. Don't worry if you saw my password manager, that's completely fine. Okay, so I guess VS Code doesn't want to work. That's great. I prepared a video, so we're just going to use the video. Okay. So sorry about this. I tried a live demo. I guess VS Code disagreed with me, so we're going to instead imagine that this is live. What you see here is an emulator on the right, and this is kind of the device that's already registered, and we're now using Python code that we wrote to authenticate a new device, but actually we're just generating the key pair in Python. So let's see here. Right, so first I'm showing that there's actually only 2 devices, my main device and then the emulator currently registered. Right, and now I'm going to run this Python script, and I wish I could show you, but I guess I cannot. What this script is going to do is it's going to first start an OpenID Connect login. So it's just normal DHL login. It's going to just prompt you with the normal DHL website, and it's going to ask you to log into your account. Right, that is. I'm entering my email and password. And this is kind of a bit hacky because we're just using Python here to spawn a Chrome browser to do this OpenID Connect. It's obviously more of a technical demonstration. In an app, this would work via like Android manifests, which specify the redirect URL. And now the device that we already authenticated can get such a token. So this QR code, if you scan it, it's just going to be a 10-digit code. The device in the background went and got this encrypted token, decrypted it, and is now showing it to us. Now with the Python script, which is scanning this QR code here, it gets the authentication token from the QR code, and it also gets a challenge from the DHL server. And now it has kind of both pieces of information that it needs to register a new device. And we're just doing this. We registered a new device, and as a proof that we actually registered the device, we can now use this new device to get an additional auth token. So this is something that I said we can only do with a registered device. And we can also look in our DHL account here and hopefully see that we indeed added a new device, which has just been added, and is actually this Python script. I think that's it. Yes, I wanted to show you that the key in the background is just a 32-byte seed, so it's just storing a 32-byte seed from which it's then deriving the keys at runtime. And this is just now saved in a JSON file locally, which we can then use to further do anything with the Packstation that we want. Okay, I hope you can see the slides again. If so, yes, thanks. The first mechanic that I want to talk about to actually pick up parcels, it's a boring one. It's where we use a QR code. And why I say it's boring is because it uses only off-the-shelf cryptography components. So it just uses TOTP, time-based one-time passwords, which is just an algorithm where you plug in some random long secret and the current time and date, and then you get out a 6-digit code. That's it. You might know it from your 2FA apps. Here's how this works. It's really just a few API requests. You ask DHL for the list of parcels, and then every parcel has this encrypted secret associated with it. And again, the encryption is done under the public key of an already registered device. So again, you need a registered device to pick up your parcel, which again is the second authentication factor that DHL introduced here. Now this parcel secret can be decrypted by the device, and because the Packstation has internet, this is the old Packstation, the FLAG Packstation, it can also talk to the DHL servers directly and can also know this parcel secret. And therefore it can just run the same algorithm that we're going to run and see if the same 6 digits fall out, and if so, then it's valid. That's pretty much it. DHL adds 3 more digits, so you might notice those codes are actually 9 digits. The kind of crypto part of it is just 6 digits, and then there's 3 more digits that just specify which compartment the parcel is in that you're trying to pick up, because there's obviously multiple parcels in the Packstation. The only thing that you kind of need to take care of here is that once this parcel secret has been used to pick up a parcel, you obviously need to invalidate it. So it would be a mistake if, for example, you had one parcel secret per physical compartment and not one parcel secret per parcel, because then I could come back 10 days later or something, reuse the same secret. But DHL does this completely correctly, so nothing to complain about here. What's a bit more interesting and more intricate is the Bluetooth pickup, because as I said, these don't have an internet connectivity for the pickup. So instead, the user's device is used to relay all the messages between the Packstation and the server. And this is what kind of motivated this research, because that's obviously, for us as researchers, a really interesting position, because by design, we're sitting in this machine in the middle position where we can see all the messages that are sent between the Packstation and the server, and we can also manipulate them at will. As it turns out, there's kind of two communication layers. There's this Bluetooth message layer, which just specifies how exactly bytes are transferred over Bluetooth Low Energy. So it just specifies the kind of service UUIDs you're using with Bluetooth, and there's two different variants that DHL implemented. We're not going to talk about those further because it's just an engineering question and not really relevant for security. What's more interesting is the logical message layer, and this specifies what the bytes that you're sending actually mean, how they're formatted, and kind of in what order you have to send them. Okay, let's look at the protocol. It starts when we're physically close to the Packstation and we click the button to pick up a parcel. We're connecting to the Packstation over Bluetooth, and we're sending this init request. And this, when I say here we're sending an init request, what I mean is we're sending a message that has a command byte which says this command is the command init session request. In response, we get a command message again, and this command is now a response. And this response contains 4096 bit of information, which we're just forwarding to DHL here. So we can't look inside this 4096 bit blob. Our best guess is that it's RSA, so they're doing RSA encryption under some public key of the DHL server, which the Packstation knows, but we don't, because we're just relaying this request. So this is kind of black box crypto that we can't look inside. What we can do is just perform a signature over those bytes that the Packstation is sending us to prove again that we are we, and we are who we say we are, because we have the private key, so we can perform a signature, and then the DHL server can just check the signature, see that it's valid, and know that we are kind of in possession of a private key for our account. What's a bit interesting here is that this communication is not authenticated with your DHL account. You only need the private key pair in this instance. You don't need your DHL account password. So as long as you have your private key and the DHL customer number, that's all you need. So in this case, it's not actually a second authentication factor, it's just the authentication factor. In response, we get an access token, and this access token is valid only for a few minutes because it authenticates this specific combination of this device at this Packstation. We can now authenticate all the remaining API communication with this token. And inside this authenticated session, we're now just relaying messages back and forth, as I said, so that the Packstation can communicate directly with the DHL server. We're first sending this init response, again inside the session, this time without a signature or anything, because the authentication part is done. And now there's this kind of initialization where the server just asks if there are any open compartments, and then the Packstation says no, and then you're done with the initialization, and we can actually start picking up our parcel. Okay, if we want to now pick up a parcel from such a Bluetooth Packstation, what we first have to do is again call this kind of parcel list API, and that's a bit interesting because this API is now a specific API for the Packstation that tells us what are the parcels available at this Packstation. We get this ID, which we can then use to say, hey, I want to pick up parcel number, I don't know, 9-digit number. And in response, we get back this open command. And again, this is a message with the command byte open, or open compartments, I think it's called. And it has some payload associated with it, which we believe is encrypted under a key that was exchanged here in this init response. So what we believe is happening is that the Packstation generates a random session key and encrypts it under the public key of DHL, sends it over in this init response, and now DHL's server can encrypt the payload for this command under the session key that was just sent by the Packstation to the server. So we can't modify this command, or if we do, then it's just rejected, so there's kind of nothing we can do, at least nothing we can do to the black box crypto of it. Once we send it, however, the Packstation can parse it and realize, okay, this is a valid command. It decrypts to something valid, and then it opens the compartment for us, and we can pick up the compartment. Once it has opened the compartment, it sends back an open response, and this is just a short message that says, yes, the compartment has been opened, and now we have some time to pick up our parcel physically out of the locker. Once we're done, we close the compartment, and the last message in the session is just a notification, okay, the compartment has been closed, and with that, the pickup process is done. The DHL server marks the parcel as picked up, and we're good. Okay, let's talk about attacks. We experimented a lot with different attacks on the implementation side of things, especially at the web API, because it's a JSON API, so there might be different kinds of attacks, but we didn't find anything. It seemed all solid. The only part that we're really not sure about is the black box cryptography that's happening directly between the Packstation and the server. We poked at it, we flipped some bits, can't say anything more without knowing exactly what the algorithm under it is. But there are two attacks that we think are still relevant and that are just possible by design of the system and not really by any implementation issue. In the first scenario, I want to consider a malicious user. So this user wants to defraud Amazon and claim that they never picked up a parcel and then get a refund for their parcel, but still have the parcel actually in their hands. And the idea here, which you might have spotted, I said it before, only once the close notification is sent is the parcel actually marked as delivered. But we get the parcel physically before this notification is sent. And we experimented with this, and it's pretty easy. I can show you again. This time it's not live, so it should hopefully work. Let's see. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so you're going to see the Packstation, you're going to see the indicator which says if Bluetooth is connected, and you're going to see our terminal which contains the re-implementation of the protocol. Okay, the first thing we do is we connect via Bluetooth Low Energy to the Packstation. We're sending over this init session request, which tells the Packstation, hey, we want to talk to you. And you can see this blue LED lit up, so we have connected over Bluetooth Low Energy to the Packstation. Once we did, we get back this init session response, and we send a login request to the API with the response and the appropriate signature. Once we get this signature, you can maybe see here these check open compartment requests and the appropriate response. Again, we're not doing anything, we're just relaying the messages here, so we don't really care. But at some point, we get a list of parcels that are available for us. We select which one we want to pick up, and we talk to the API to get this open request. From the API, we forward it to the Packstation, and as you can see here, the compartment is open. There we go, and the Packstation sends us this opened response to indicate that the compartment was opened indeed. The trick here is we did this already before we started recording, and at this point we just canceled the script. So if we actually look inside, even though DHL just told us there's a parcel in here, there's none. And now we can do the same thing for 7 days. We just have kind of storage at DHL Packstation. As long as we cancel the request after opening the compartment, we can open this as long as we want, as long as after 7 days the parcel is kind of automatically sent back. But yeah, so this works, and it's cheaper than the DB lockers, I think. Anyway, this is the first idea of an attack. Thanks. There's one more attack that I want to talk about. This time we consider an honest user. So we have an honest user, and we're just sitting in a car or in a bush somewhere next to the Packstation as the adversary and trying to steal a parcel from the honest user. And for this, we have to recall that the Packstation uses unpaired Bluetooth connections, so it's there's no like number matching or anything you have to do when you walk up, right? You just pick up your parcel and you get your parcel. So there's no encryption, no authentication on the Bluetooth layer. We don't think passive attacks are possible, so just by listening to the Bluetooth traffic, we think it should be fine, because as I hinted at, there's this kind of key exchange mechanism that's happening inside the Bluetooth connection. So if you record any messages, you can't replay them or anything. So this doesn't help you. But there are active attacks that are possible, because kind of this is normal Bluetooth behavior. You can just sit in the middle of an unauthenticated connection, right? You can just spoof the Bluetooth Low Energy advertisement of the Packstation, connect to the Packstation yourself, and then when the user tries to connect, they're actually connecting to your device, and then you connect to the Packstation. So this is what this looks like. And here's the idea of the attack. We are the adversary in the middle. The user's device is on the left, and then kind of to the left of the user's device would be the DHL servers, which I've just omitted here. And from the perspective of the adversary, the user starts the connection. We then start the connection with the Packstation and just honestly relay all the initialization messages. So all this key exchange, we're not touching at all so that it remains valid, and the user can talk to the API and nothing is wrong. But then at some point, the user's device is going to send us this command to open the compartment. And here's where we get a bit active. What we do is we send back an error to the user's device, or even we just close the Bluetooth connection. In either case, the user's device is going to see an error that says, something went wrong picking up your parcel, and the user might try again. They might try again a few times, but after some time, the user's going to leave, right? Because it's just not working. And our bet is here that the user tries one last time and almost immediately kind of leaves because, it didn't work, I'm frustrated, I leave. And the Packstation actually keeps the connection open for, I think, 2 to 3 minutes if the adversary doesn't close it. So we have this window here. If the user leaves earlier than 2 minutes after they've last tried to pick up their parcel, what we can do as the adversary is just keep the connection open with the Packstation and then just wait until the user leaves and only then send over the open command. So we're not modifying anything, so there's no way for the Packstation to detect this. Because if you look at the perspective of the Packstation, it just looks like a normal pickup. It's all the normal messages, it's the normal open command in the right order, it's just a bit delayed. So yeah, the user has kind of no chance to notice this. What's a bit interesting in addition is that if the user comes back the next day and tries this again to pick up their parcel and we are not there, the parcel is still going to be it's still going to show up in the DHL app because we're never sending the close notification to the API, right? So the parcel never gets marked as delivered. The next day, the user walks up to the Packstation, tries to pick up the parcel, it works, but the compartment is empty because we already took the parcel out. So yeah, again, quite an interesting attack. We obviously have to be physically close and there's cameras and it's probably not a good idea, but theoretically it works. And yeah, okay, these are the kind of 2 attacks. And we talked to DHL about this, and all this research was done in the scope of the DHL Vulnerability Disclosure Program. And what we think is really interesting, that DHL was so diligently observing their logs that they saw our weird requests with the API. We're just trying some stuff out, and they contacted us and were like, we saw you're doing some vulnerability research, do you want to talk to us? And at first we were like, shit, are we going to be sued? But it was fine, they were really interested and really curious and tried to learn more about what we found, which we think is a really impressive response to security research, and was a bit surprising to us with past experiences where companies had different reactions to vulnerability research. And DHL confirmed to us that both these attacks were considered in the design of the Packstation system, and they kind of work as intended, because especially if you consider the first attack, the other option would be that the API marks the parcel as delivered as soon as this open command is kind of issued or released by the API. But now if there's some hardware issue with the Packstation or there's internet connectivity issues with the user's device and the open command is actually never received by the device, then you only get one try to pick up your parcel, it fails, and now you're kind of stuck and locked out of your parcel. So this is an intentional choice, but it's still interesting to learn about that this works. And yeah, again, props to DHL, I guess. They did a really good job here responding to this and talking to us. Okay, I'm almost done. One more thing. I published our re-implementation on GitHub here. It contains a bit more detailed documentation about the API endpoints you're using. And well, you can use it to pick up parcels both at the old and new Packstation. There's some caveats. It's all in the README. But yeah, that's it from me. And if you have any questions, now's the time.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions?
How many parcels have you been sending?
Not too many. I think in total it was maybe like 5 that we did for different tests. But because we figured out pretty early that we can do all these tests without sending the close notifications and then just have infinite tries for 7 days, it wasn't too bad, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can't answer that, but Packstation knows that the door was closed and tried to send out the data to the smartphone, just the smartphone did not forward it. And since the Packstation does not have online connection, it never reaches the DHL. In case of something valuable is lost here, is there a kind of log inside a log, not a lock, a log, L-O-G,
Yes.
in the Packstation, so for forensic and for research, they can look that the door was closed?
So two things. First of all, they can look at the API side definitely and see that you got the open response, so you can still argue, oh, there was a malfunction or whatever. We don't know if there are logs inside. From what we can see with the commands you can issue to the Packstation, it seems there's some log file. I can't tell you what's inside. I also do know that the no internet claim is actually not quite true. They have a LoRa connection that they use at night sometime to do firmware updates and stuff, so I'm not sure if they may be transmitting more detailed logs there as well, but nothing that we know of.
All right, anyone else?
Hi. Do you think that when they are that good at looking at their logs, that they would see that you're doing nasty stuff?
I don't know if they have logging of failed pickup attempts, but I would expect that, especially if you do it more than once, they're probably going to notice. Yes, I would expect that, but I can't tell you for sure.
Have you considered disrupting the free locker ecosystem market by releasing this as a polished Android app that lets you lock up your things for 7 days?
I mean, if I knew how to make Android apps properly, I would totally do this. But I mean, yeah, feel free to code it up. There's also probably more vectors because we didn't look at sending, for example, at all. So maybe it's even enough to just order what's it called, digital postage stamp thing on your app, and then have instant access to the locker. With this method, you have to first receive a parcel. There's probably some way, but I'm probably not going to work on it.
Okay, maybe there's space for a collaboration or something.
That would be cool.
So you looked to the code and protocol for the end user, but there must also be something that the postbote is using, because I know that I once had a parcel locked in there because it was not opening, and the next day it said, okay, now it's in another compartment. So the postbote has some other means of access to all this stuff. Do you have investigated in this communication as well somehow?
We think it's also Bluetooth Low Energy, and we think it's the same protocol based on what we see in the app, because there's more messages that you could send if you have the appropriate level of authentication. What you could do, but legally can't, is send a parcel with a machine in the middle, Raspberry Pi, to a Packstation and then just record what happens when it's delivered to the Packstation. And then we would figure out what the Packstation, what the delivery guy actually has to do, but this would definitely be illegal, so I have no idea.
All right, any more questions? This does not seem to be the case, so thank you very much again.